1, 2, 3, and...
Hey everyone, welcome back. And if you're new, welcome. I'm not in the tiny house today. I'm actually at the beach, at the ocean. And today I'm going to answer some of the questions from the Q&A that I put out that short asking you guys for questions, and you guys really delivered. So today I'm going to answer some of them. Probably not all of them. They can come in a future Q&A. I'm going to try and be rapid fire, not think too much about my answers. Hopefully you can hear me well because it is a little windy out here, so I apologize in advance for the audio quality. All right, so let's start with a question that I got, actually messages that I got from several of you. On the 17th of April, 2024 is when we're filming this. There was an earthquake off of the coast of off the northern end of Vancouver Island, and it was a 4.8 on the Richter scale. And so I've got a lot of people that have reached out privately and on the social media to ask how I'm doing. Did I feel it? Am I okay? Actually, I didn't even know there was an earthquake until I got my first message, interestingly, and it's certainly not that it was a 4.8. Now, it was located, like I said, off of the northern coast of Vancouver Island, and it was located, the earthquake was 5 kilometers below sea, underground. I don't know. It was at a depth, that was what the news said, at a depth of 5 kilometers. So, yeah, the thing is that it's not uncommon for there to be earthquakes in this part of Canada, because what we have is we've got 2 tectonic plates that are rubbing up against each other. They are the, hold on a sec, they're the Juan de Fuca tectonic plate and the Pacific tectonic plates, and they are, again, putting pressure on each other. And so we do get earthquakes here. Normally they are imperceptible to humans, and even with that 4.8 this week, there was no worry, no warning of a tsunami, no concern for a tsunami or anything like that. But I'm on the mainland side of Vancouver Island. That is the mainland. Well, there's islands, and then that's the mainland. The other side of the island, the side of the island that basically faces Japan, that is a bigger worry for tsunamis and such. But where we are here, it's not as much of a worry. But obviously, when you're in a region where 2 tectonic plates are rubbing up against each other, there's going to be times where they cause an earthquake, and it could potentially be serious. But there are lots of warning signals, sirens in place. But again, I was sitting at my desk after around 2 o'clock to, what was it? What time did it happen? I think it was at 2:30, 2:45 or something like that in the afternoon. and I didn't feel a thing. So yeah, but thanks to all of you who reached out. I really appreciate that you were concerned. But yeah, not a problem. No worries about the earthquake. Do you always feel safe? Do you have a security system and or cameras set up at home? Have you ever not felt safe? Their biggest concern if they go tiny is feeling safe. No, I don't have security cameras set up. Even when I lived in Calgary, I didn't. And I certainly have never felt unsafe in my tiny house. I've never been in an area, lived in an area where I felt unsafe. Maybe when I am on my own piece of property in the middle of nowhere, that might be different. But in that situation, I think my biggest concern would be wild animals, bears, moose, coyotes, wolves. And I think I would put up trail cams, wildlife cameras, just because I wanted to catch them. But no, I don't have security cameras, and I don't have a security system in the tiny house, and I don't have any intentions of putting one in. I've never felt unsafe in the 3 locations that I've lived in. And so, yeah, that's that question. And then I got a couple of questions actually, about would I ever consider moving off of the island, moving back to see my kids. Yeah, have I ever thought of moving off the island because it's super expensive? And have I ever considered moving back to Calgary or to be near my kids? Questions like that. Well, yeah, it's expensive to live here, but it's expensive to live anywhere nowadays. And I think the trade-off, that small percentage more that things cost to be on the island, for me, the trade-off is worth it to have this and to be where I've always wanted to live. Would I ever move back to Calgary? Not if I could help it, not because I don't think Calgary is a beautiful place, and I have friends there, and obviously the kids are there. But as it stands right now, no, I don't plan on moving back. I can't see myself moving back, but I will never say never. I never say never about anything, or pretty much anything. If the kids start having grandbabies, then of course I may have to reevaluate that decision or what the future holds, but I will deal with that when and if that happens. There were also several questions that centered around, do I feel lonely? Do I miss my friends? How often do I see friends? That sort of thing. Is living alone isolating, and is it lonely? Well, I've mentioned this in multiple other videos, but if you're new or if you haven't watched them, I'll just talk about it now. I'm an introvert, so I actually really like my own company. Not because I don't like people, it's just because being around a lot of people drains me, makes me tired, and amps up my anxiety level. So I work from home and I live alone, and I do see my friends. I have a friend who's on the island, well, several friends on the island, one of which is close enough that I see on a fairly regular basis. I have my really good friend in Calgary who comes down to the island, to her place in Victoria from Calgary fairly regularly. So obviously I get up there to see her, and she comes down. And then there's my neighbors, right? Where I am now, I do have neighbors because it's a little tiny house community. And so if I want company when I go for my walk after work, I can always just text one of them and say, hey, you want to go for a walk? But I actually really prefer the living situation that I'm in right now. And if I were ever, I'm not saying that I would never live with somebody. If I had a partner, if I decided, if I met somebody and decided to have that person move into the tiny house with me, that would be fine as well. But I think it would take a special kind of person for me to want to do that with. And so as of right now, I really like living alone, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Another question was, now that I've lived in the tiny house for quite a few years, do I wish the tiny house was bigger? And do I struggle with storage, having places for things just the size of the tiny house? Do I wish, there was another question that asked me, how do I like my kitchen? Do I wish it was bigger, or is there anything I would change about that? So the answer is no, I don't wish my tiny house was bigger. It is the perfect size. I'm glad that I went that 9.5 feet wide outside measurements, and 37 feet long from the front of the gooseneck to the back of the tiny house, because that does give me more interior space and makes the space feel bigger. But I never feel like the space is too small, and I never feel like I don't have enough storage for the things that I need to store. I do end up with way too much shit in my tiny house that I have to find a room for, and that is a constant struggle. I think that's a human thing. So I am always in the process of letting things go and deciding what do I need to keep in the tiny house, what do I really need. And really, when you live small in any form of that, whether it's a small apartment, a house, an RV, a boat, anything, you end up having to choose what things you bring in there and what things you keep. And storage is always a factor because you only have so much space. But I don't struggle with that. And I don't ever think that the tiny house is too small. And the kitchen, as far as the kitchen goes, I love my kitchen. It has so much storage in it. It is the perfect size. It's got more countertop space than my kitchen in my condo that I sold to build the tiny house. It's super functional. The only thing I wish about my kitchen is that I had gone with an induction cooktop or electric cooktop instead of a gas cooktop for my stove. I wish I'd gone with an electric stove, to be honest with you. And I may replace my stove at some point. It's a gas stove. The reason I got it is it could go on propane or natural gas. But I just find that I don't like how the cooktop in particular functions on propane. On natural gas it was a little cooler, but on propane it's really quite hot, and so I struggle with that. But otherwise, no, it's the perfect size, and I would certainly not go bigger. I could easily live smaller, but it's got everything that I need. So I have a question here about, do I do journaling? No, I wish I did. I envy people, I admire people that journal, because I just think that is such a great habit and a great way to keep track of and memorialize things, and keep your memories in a place where you can find them. But I actually find this my version of journaling by making these videos, even if nobody watched them. It helps me to journal my life and my experiences and the different moments that I have. So I find that this is sort of, it's a visual journal. Any 5 favorite books other than cookbooks? Oh, well, that's easy. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, book 1, book 2, book 3, The Hobbit, and then, but seriously, anything by, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit are my favorite books ever. I have read them probably about 20 times now each, because I just love them, and every couple of years or a year or two I pick them up and read them again. Also, my favorite author other than Tolkien is Dave Duncan. His Seven Swordmen series is his most popular series, but my favorite of his series is The Great Game. Read The Great Game series. It is amazing, and he is an amazing writer, and he just happens to be my best friend's dad. And I just think he's the best. So I would say those are my recommendations, but in general I tend to read those types of books, not fiction that takes me to a different world and takes me away from the reality of today. All right, guys, I'm going to just end with one last one, and this last one is from Sherpa Supreme, who just happens to be my oldest son, Keaton, on Instagram. And he asks, have I had any wildlife encounters? Have you ever had a deer or a bear peek in at you? Any Sasquatch encounters? Well, I've not had any wildlife encounters as in, something aggressive. Certainly see a ton of deer here. I've not seen a bear or a cougar or anything like that, but I know they're around. Mostly it's just deer that I see. But in my first location on Vancouver Island, when I was just outside of Chemainus, it was probably September or October, maybe October, because it was dark out, and I was watching TV. I was getting ready, thinking about going to bed, and so I'm sitting in my living room and I'm watching TV. Now, I never closed my curtains because I was backed onto a ravine in a very private area The lot that I was in, my spot, was very private, surrounded by woods, and backing onto a ravine with a little creek at the bottom of it. And on the other side of the ravine, it was just trees that went up into the mountain. And I didn't have my TV on very loud. And the only light that was on was the little string lights that I have in my living room and the TV. And I hear this call that sounds, I swear to God, it was a combination of an animal scream and a person yell. That's the only way I can describe it. And it was loud. It didn't sound like it was right beside me, but it sounded like it was close. Now, keep in mind, I'm right on a ravine and everything echoes there. So I just paused the TV and just sat there. And so then I heard it again. And this time it sounded closer. Now, I didn't have my outside light on, hooked up yet. It was pitch dark out there. I certainly couldn't see out the back window of the house where I was sitting. So the windows behind me and to the side. And so then I turned the TV off, turned all the lights off, and I opened the window to listen. And then I cracked the door just a little bit to listen. And I didn't hear anything. So I just decided that was it. I'm going to bed. And I got into bed and I heard it a couple more times. It sounded like it was getting a little farther away. In my mind, that was a Sasquatch. The next day, I went on to this website that has all of the calls for owls on the island. Every different type of owl that is on the island, what is their call, other birds as well. And I could not find an owl that sounded like that. Now, it could have been a deer, it could have been another animal, a fox, but we don't have foxes here. It could have been. It was obviously an animal. I don't think it was human. But I'm saying that was a Sasquatch because when I researched Sasquatch sightings on Vancouver Island, there is a surprising number of stories that have been told throughout the years. So that's my story, that's my belief, and I'm sticking to it, that the wildlife encounter or the Sasquatch encounter that I have was that day, because it really did sound like what a Sasquatch, I imagine, would sound like. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. It's always fun to do a Q&A and answer all of your questions sort of at once. It's a great way to consolidate all the answers into one video. We have lots of new people who are now, part of the family on the channel. And so it's nice to give them some answers, even though I almost always have answered the question in some version in previous videos. But I think the Q&As are nice and concise. At least I try to be. I don't know how well that worked. I hope the sound was good. Again, it's pretty windy out here. And this mic, kind of a piece of crap. I really want to invest in some wireless lavalier mics, but they're expensive. So I don't know. Anyways, I have looked at them on Amazon. One of these days, I'll pull the trigger. So anyways, guys, was not as sunny out today as I had hoped it would be. Maybe tomorrow it will be sunny, but I'm going to get out and go for a nice long walk right now. And I've been doing that on a regular basis, and I'm going to make a video about that because that's been really a neat thing, a neat habit that I've implemented. We'll talk about it later. After a long work week, it's so nice to be out here. So I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're staying safe. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind, including to yourself. I love you, and I'll see you next time.